Our community's collective scar will once again open as another trial begins involving the mass murder at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School 5 years ago. This time, it's the school resource officer who did not go in. Scot Peterson is criminally charged with child neglect and negligence. For some legal context on that, Gail Levine, a veteran prosecutor leading some of South Florida's most high-profile cases, who is also here helping us make sense of the Douglas High shooters' sentencing phase. Gail, it's great to have you on the program again.
Thanks, Glenna. Nice to be here.
So let's go through these charges. 7 child neglect charges with great bodily harm, 3 culpable negligence, and a perjury charge. But I want to start with the child neglect charges because a law enforcement officer, former at this point, but in his capacity as a law enforcement officer, how unusual is a child neglect charge?
Well, let me first start by saying the only person that is responsible for these 17 murders and these 17 attempted murders is the person that did it, who is in prison for life. Second thing I want to tell you is that police officers are sworn to protect and serve. They are not what I would believe is defined in the statutes in Florida as a caregiver. And Mr. Peterson is charged as a caregiver for those child neglect charges. That entails people that are supposed to be feeding and clothing a person that's a child or elderly or physically disabled. That is not what a police officer does. If that's what a police officer does, then we no longer have a right to privacy and we no longer need search warrants because police officers are caregivers to children and elderly.
And would that, do you think that would hold true for specifically a school resource officer?
Absolutely. In fact, in 2018, when this crime occurred, there was very little law on what a school resource officer is supposed to do. In fact, that law now, Statute 1001, was enacted after this shooting. So a school resource officer had very little responsibility in the light of being akin to a SWAT officer. Now, I want you to know that out of every 10 officers that apply for SWAT, maybe only 4 make it, graduate from the program, because it takes a special person with special skills. That's not a school resource officer. Mr. Peterson did have some active shooter training that he received in 2016. It is not the same training that is given after this horrible attack. The training has evolved. What Mr. Peterson was doing what his training told him to do. It's not about bravery. It's not about courage. Police officers act with training. And his training said, what's the intelligence that I'm receiving? And he says the intelligence he's receiving, which is backed up by the Broward Sheriff's Department radio transmissions, that he doesn't know where the shooter is because there's echoing. A teacher not far from him said she thinks the shooting's coming from a neighboring Walmart. He doesn't have the intelligence to go in, to know where he's supposed to go. And in the end, he's got a knife in a gunfight. He's got a pistol with an AR-15. He's without backup.
So those jurors are going to see, I don't know what you're able to see as we talk, but we were just showing video of the surveillance tape from the school and what he was doing. And Scot Peterson says he was on the radio. He was calling a code red. To your point, some of his training probably mandated just that. So the jurors are going to see this video. They're going to hear his testimony about why he did not go in. You mentioned that he said he didn't know where the shots were coming from, although some in the radio transmissions he does mention the 1200 building. What specifically do you think will resonate most when the jurors start to hear this story? Jurors who will be picked this week, presumably to be fair, though they may know so much about what transpired that day.
Well, I think what you have to actually listen to is the radio transmission. And when you show the video, the surveillance video, which I've seen, by looking it up myself, but what you don't hear is the transmission. What's he being told? Is he being told, you go in there? You go in there? No, he's not being told that because Broward Sheriff's Department is not getting the same radio transmission as Coral Springs. It's a perfect storm. Coral Springs knew where the shooter was based on the 911 transmissions. The 911 transmissions were going to Coral Springs. They were not connected to BSO. BSO was forming a perimeter, as they're trained to do, just like you saw in the Nashville shooting. You saw that lives were lost, yes, but the police didn't act and just run in. They set up. And unfortunately, they didn't know where to set up, Broward Sheriff. That's why Coral Springs comes in and does the right thing. They had the intelligence. And the jury's going to hear this isn't the fault of Scot Peterson. This is the fault of poor radio transmission communications that connect, that's since been changed, and also training. How do you have one school resource officer, in effect, one SWAT officer for 3,000 students?
So many levels of what went wrong that we have found out since that. Why is that the charges include 3 charges of culpable negligence and 1 of perjury? Why is Scot Peterson charged with perjury?
Scot Peterson testified that he didn't know where the shots were coming from. And the perjury charge, I believe, stems from them being able to say he did. It's a matter of perception, and perception does not equal a lie. I think that's a charge that will fall as well.
And what role will the 1200 building play? That building is being preserved still as evidence, as a criminal crime scene, as a crime scene for this trial. What role does that play here?
Well, I think the role actually helps the defense, because as we all saw, if we watched some of those videos, those horrific videos over the summer during the sentencing phase, the echoing sound, if you put yourself into that situation, even inside, the echo is very difficult to determine where the shooter is and where he is coming from. So I think that is great that they've kept that, because I think people have to not Monday morning quarterback Mr. Peterson. What they have to do is put themselves in the place of Mr. Peterson at that time with his training. He was trained. He followed the training procedures. If you don't like them, that's why they were changed. But I think it's really, really incumbent upon people that have children in schools to realize that one officer with a pistol does not win a gunfight with an AR-15.
Gail Levine, always appreciate your insights, and I know you will be our go-to person as this trial continues. Thanks so much.
I look forward to helping. Thank you.